We're in Genesis chapter 36 this morning, in Genesis chapter 36. Chapter 36 is real another of those genealogies. It's a genealogy of Esau and tells of his descendants. But unlike many of the other genealogies that we've already run into in Genesis, this is not really a fast forwarding of the story. Many of the genealogies act as bridges to take us one event to the next event several years in the future. That's not really the way this genealogy functions. Really, I believe there's probably two purposes that I would suggest for this genealogy. One, it's to remind God's people who the Edomites were. They're getting ready to go into the land that God had promised them, and God had told them in Deuteronomy chapter 2 not to provoke the Edomites, and they needed to know that the people of Edom were their descendants. The second purpose, maybe it just provides a contrast between Esau and Jacob and his descendants. One of the great themes of chapter 36, we see how prosperous Esau is, but we see the decisions that he made to gain his prosperity. And even though he was prosperous, he seems to be very profane. So let's just read verses 6 through 8 together. It said, Then Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all his household and his livestock and all his cattle and all his goods which he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to another land away from his brother Jacob. For their property had become too great for them to live together, and the land where they sojourned could not sustain them because of their livestock. So Esau lived in the hill country of Seir. Esau is Edom. So, brother, what do you got?
Back in chapter 28, actually at the end of chapter 27, we find that Esau began to bring a lot of hardship on his parents because he started taking women from the land to be wives. And in chapter 28, he's specifically told by his parents, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. But as chapter 36 begins, we find Esau took his wives from the Canaanites. He completely disregarded what his parents wanted. And because of that, Edom, which they were the relatives of Israel, but there were some problems that came sometimes from that. But certainly, as you look at verse 12, the Amalekites came from Esau. And the Amalekites, they always had problems with the Israelites. Because he completely disregarded the admonition of his parents, he brought problems on not only himself, but also later the descendants of Jacob and all the Israelites. I think for young people in particular, it's difficult sometimes. But that admonition to listen to your parents is one that's, though hard, really wise. Over and over again in the book of Proverbs, there is that admonition. I'll just take the first few verses of chapter 3. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace will be added to you. If you listen to your parents, things generally will be better. And I think it's just striking that they told him, don't do this. He did it. Problems came up.
I wanted to think about the end of verse 6 and into verse 7. Jacob and Esau can't live anywhere near each other because their possessions are just too great. We often think about how greatly God blessed Jacob, but God blessed Esau materially as well. Esau has a lot. One of the things that characterizes Esau, though, is that he is obsessed with material things. I just think about over in chapter 27 and verse 38, when he says to his father Isaac, have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. He just wants that blessing so bad. And the contrast between Jacob and Esau is Jacob at least finally understands where his blessings come from. We never really see Esau acknowledge where his blessings have come from. And I think there's a good lesson there. God has blessed us all so greatly. We need to remember where those blessings come from and have the proper response of gratitude for it. Amen.
Two great applications. Thank you for joining us for the 4-3-2-1. If you have any thoughts on this genealogy or the descendants of Esau, please let us know in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today and have a great afternoon.